use drugs, and persons with disabilities are not spared. Research indicates that persons with disabilities are at a higher risk of substance use due to a number of factors, chief among them discrimination. So, what is leading persons with disabilities to take drugs? Is it lack of support systems, limited access to education and employment, or something else entirely? So this is what we want to look at tonight. Tinzwisise kuti nyaya iyi yekutorwa kwezvinodhaka haisarudze kuti ndiani. Tiri kuona kuti kunyangwe vakaremara vari kupindawo mukushandisawo zvinodhaka. Toda kunzwawo zvikonzero zvii zvimwe zvinoita kuti vasvike pakutora zvinodhaka. Ndezvipi zvingaitwa kuti tibatsirane nehama dzedu dziri kusangana nedambudziko iri, nekuti ongororo iri kuratidza kuti vechidiki ndo vari kunyanya kutora zvinodhaka. Saka tinavo vamwe vechidiki muno mustudio kuti vange vachitibatsira nechirongwa chino, vachitipawo pfungwa dzavo kuti vari kufunga kuti zvingaitwe sei. To help with this discussion, I am joined in the studio by Faith Chaturuka, who is a programs coordinator for the organization called For Youths by Youths. And I also have Rufaro Chinyanga, who is an albinism rights advocate. And on the line, I'm joined by Fungai Trevor Mudzingwa, who is a community psychologist. Thank you so much. Good evening and welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Thank you, Spencer.
Good evening, listeners. Good evening. Thank you.
Okay, let me start with you, Rufaro. As a young person, as a young man, what do you think are the underlying factors that contribute to you taking drugs?
Well, I think first and foremost, when we talk about people with disabilities, they are people. So the social economic problems that affect the ordinary young person in this country also fall upon them, and maybe on them it might be a little bit harder, since that they are carrying the burden of discrimination, they're carrying the burden of trying to be accepted in society. So I would think that the first and the most valid reason would be depression. I've been on that road of depression myself. You know, it's difficult for you. Imagine you are 4 years old, or you are, I don't know, in primary school, you're grade 4, and already at that stage you need to understand who you are, and you need to be understand society. That's just too much. You know, at that stage you should be just someone who's young, and someone just wants to enjoy tamba mahumbu and play soccer on the streets. But at that stage already society is saying to you, you're not like us, you are not normal, you're not like this. So depression starts at a very young age, and some can handle it and some cannot. So I think, especially the youth that I've seen, people with albinism who have gone to take on drugs like crystal meth, it mainly begins with depression. You know, the whole struggle that they go through, discrimination and so forth, they just find a space to hide. You know, you get high, you find a high, and when you get high, you hide from your troubles for a while. You forget that you have got a disability, you've got albinism or so forth. You know, so I would think it begins by depression. Then comes these other things that we can talk about, that probably lack of unemployment, lack of opportunities and so forth. But if we're going to focus on people with disabilities, young people, it begins with depression from a young age.
Okay. Before I come to you, Faith, maybe let's give this one to Mr. Mudzingwa. As an expert, what role do those traumatic experiences, especially the nechekuita ne abuse or neglect, what role do they play in the development of addiction to substance use?
Okay, thank you very much for bringing out that one. I think first and foremost, we need to understand that the trauma is a very, 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 very critical issue when it comes to issues to drug and substance abuse, especially for people, persons living with disabilities. You find that, as the earlier speaker alluded to, that there is so much discrimination, there's so much stereotyping from the moment that a person is born with a disability. The society has a negative attitude that even the parents go through, and the child is socially conditioned from the word go that the world in he or she is born with doesn't fully accept who they are, doesn't accommodate them. Therefore, you would find that cases of abuse are rampant. And these, when they come in the early formative stages in life, a person develops what we call cognitive schemas that wires them to have negative thoughts. And, the world around them turns out to be negative. And as a result, one develops a coping strategy. And most of the time now, the coping strategy becomes negative. And you find that as a way of self-medication, as a way of trying to have what we call self-preservation, individuals or persons with persons living with disabilities end up taking up drugs as a way to cloud their mind, to protect themselves from the vicious cycle that they find themselves. I think the earlier speaker also talked about issues to do with employment and everything. It becomes a constellation of a host of problems. So you find that the trauma that a person experienced in earlier life will also lead to what we call post-traumatic stress disorder. We find that if the person grows with that trauma, and it doesn't go away until a person gets treatment. So as a way of coping with the trauma, people indulge in things that cloud their mind, and that's when they end up engaging in these unhealthy coping mechanisms, which leads to substance and drug abuse.
And coming to you, Faith, what can you say has been the impact of drug and substance use among persons with disabilities?
Okay, thank you so much, Spati. Sorry, the name is Charity, not Faith. So, in responding to the impact that drug and substance abuse has had on persons with disability, I think we need to understand that disability comes in various forms. I'm sure we are all very much accustomed to physical disability, but there's also mental disability that people often not talk about or not pay much attention to, but it's something that is very critical. And just add on to the earlier speakers that were looking at the factors, we also have to look at the social factors, like Rufus was saying, that even the family setup, the lack of family support is also another factor that is leading to persons with disabilities engaging in drug and substance use. And when it comes to the effects now, we are looking at basically the health implications, because already we are looking at persons with disabilities who are at a disadvantage when it comes to their health issues. And on top of that, we are adding drug and substance abuse. So that on its own will also increase the existing or physical or mental health challenges that they are facing already. And already as a country, we are really struggling to deal with drug and substance abuse. So, and also struggling to also help persons with disabilities with other with other health needs, especially when we're looking at persons with mental disability. So that also leads to further damages, further challenges when it comes to them accessing health, because already at the health facilities, the resources uh, are not well tailor made to assist or help persons with disability. And when we look at drug and substance abuse, it's also the same case, because we have health personnel that are not fully trained to deal with persons with disability. I'll give an example of a deaf person, a person with hard of hearing. When they get at these public health institutions, it's very difficult for them to get access, because maybe there's no one who is there to provide sign language. And it goes also, it is the same case even to persons with disability that are into drug and substance abuse, because they are not then able to get the assistance that they require, because at the health facilities we do not have adequate personnel that are well trained to address issues that persons with disability are facing. So in short, I would say these and other various effects also affect persons with disability. Just like what Rufa says, apart from disability, you are a human first. So whatever everyone is facing, it is double to persons with disability, because it also comes with a lot of stigma and discrimination, just like what Rufus highlighted earlier on. Thank you.
Okay, if you're just joining us, you are listening to the Disability Factor on Star FM, sounding good all the time. I'm Spatisiwe Mpofu, and tonight we are discussing drug and substance abuse. Others might want to call it drug and substance use. Yeah, so to help me with the discussion, I have in the studio Charity Chaturuka, who is programs coordinator for the organization for youths by youths, as well as Rufaro Chinyanga, who is an albinism rights advocate. And joining us on the line is Fungai Trevor Mudzingwa, who is a community psychologist. So, and to you, our valued listener, please feel free to be part of this discussion. You can send in your contributions to 0772 162651, 0772 162651. Mr. Mzingwa, if you can maybe just take us through the signs and symptoms of somebody anenge atosvika pachinhanho chekuti akushandisa zvinodhaka zvadarikidza mwero, tinozviona sei kuti asvika padanho rekuti ange achitsvaga rubatsiro?
Okay, I think what we can say about the changes that takes place when someone go to a stage where they are now being overwhelmed with the abuse or misuse of drugs, you find that one, there is a drastic change in behavior of an individual, and secondly, we find that there is change in terms of self-care, there's neglect, and the individual at times becomes aggressive or non-responsive from the way that they be behaving before. And when it comes to that level, and you also find that we also have to understand that individuals with disabilities, as long as they don't have any other intellectual challenges, they operate the same with us. So you find that the way that any other individual is affected also affects them, but the difference is the magnitude because of the disadvantage, the prejudice, and the stereotype that we always people attach to disability. So you find that the most prominent thing is that's neglect, lack of self-care, and you also find that issues to do with the diet and everything are all the same. The constellation, the effect is more or like the same. though we are saying it becomes profound when it comes to individuals with disabilities. That's what I can say, but definitely there are marked changes in terms of behavior. Some actually withdraw, even from family, from friends, and you find that the need to continuously use drugs because of the dependence that one grows into. It becomes so strong that an individual cannot live without taking those drugs, and we always find that there are issues to do with crime, even though there are limitations. For one to be able to get access to those drugs, one has to get access to money in order to be able to fulfill that desire to take in drugs, because the addiction will now be taking over control of an individual. So the marked difference is only that we have individuals or persons with disabilities already are in the category where they are disadvantaged, and the effects become profound because of the limitations that they have. But that's what I can say is dependence, as far as dependence and the level and the magnitude of addiction becomes as a person continues to use more and more of these drugs. The dependence grows each time a person takes. Therefore, the drawing effect, the pulling effect becomes stronger, and the person gets to desperation in order to get access to those drugs over and over again.
And what strategies do you think can be implemented to prevent drug and substance abuse among PWDs, Rufaro?
Well, first and foremost, I think we have to begin with making people with disabilities feel accepted and feel a part of society. We go back to the very founding principles of our struggle in the disability fraternity,
Mm.
because when you feel accepted, when you feel normal, when people make you feel normal, and you it has a psychological effect on you. You feel part of something, therefore you won't withdraw from society. Like I said, for me, I think the main thing that would lead people with disabilities, other than the other socio-economic factors that affect the ordinary person, would be depression.
Mm.
Because depression comes from the very fact that you do not feel accepted, you do not feel human enough, you do not feel part of the Zimbabwean family, you know. So if we were to attack, or we were to address depression first,
Mm.
I think that would um, be the very first brick in fighting um, the other causes that would lead specifically for persons with disabilities to them ending up taking drugs and substances. Like I said, I myself, I have been a victim of depression,
Mm.
but I for example, myself with albinism, I grew up in a colored community in Sunningdale. When I was home, I felt accepted because there were some colored people who looked like me.
Mm.
But when I went to school, primary school and high school, there were other kids who were coming from, other backgrounds, not the colored community that I was coming from. And they tended to, discriminate me. They tended to say words, you know. I would go home, practically with my heart in my hands and say, I don't feel human. I don't.
Mm.
So, but then what would happen was the support system that was there at home. It was a proper family, mother, father, sisters, and the community, the colored community. It always make me feel, no, I'm human because I'm with these guys. But then when I have conversation, with other people with albinism, or with other people with other forms of disabilities, they didn't have this coping mechanism. They didn't have this fallback. So you can see that when these things are not there, that same depression I experienced, they experience it, and especially the young people with disabilities in this era now, in this 2025, with the whole advent of drugs. It's going to be easy for them to just say, well, the same thing that Rufus went through some years ago, I can easily just take this substance and feel high, and not think about, because I'm just looking for an escape place, you know. Yeah.
Okay, someone is coming through our WhatsApp platform. Okay, anzi vanhu vanotengesa madrugs avo ndivo hanzi ndivo vanokonzeresa vanofanira kusungwa matambudziko acho apere. Ndivamapuranga homwe, the radio ambassador Glenview 8. Thank you so much for that contribution. Mumwe ari kuti good evening. Taking drugs, it doesn't matter kuti you're disabled or not, munu. So let's just tackle drug abuse as a problem affecting the whole country. This is the messages from Captain John Kambarami in Glenora. Thank you so much for that contribution. Tinotenda zvikuru. Anzi pamwe ndatadza kunzwa hangu ndibatsireiwo, mati munhu ari kuita zvemadrugs anonzi ari disabled here mairuru kuhopley? Kwete, tati vane madisabilities naivo vanowanikwawo munyaya idzodzi kutorwa kwezvinodhaka. Sei tazviunza pachirongwa inyaya yekuti by the mere fact yekuti vane disability, it means kuti vari padisadvantage yakakura kana tichienzanisawo nevamwe. Ndokusaka tichitsvaga nzira dzekuti tingabatsirane sei. Hongu idambudziko riri kubata nyika yose. Ndambotaura pekutanga kuti mastatistics ari kutaridza kuti chikamu chakakura cheve chidiki vari kutora zvinodhaka. Ndokusaka tichikurukura nyaya iyi tichipanana mazano ekuti ndezvipi zvingaitwe. From your experience, Mr. Mudzingwa, what are the most effective treatment approaches or remedies for those who are taking drugs?
Okay, I think what I would say is nowadays we are advocating for what we say a holistic approach, which actually has to improve the number of therapies that can be used in combination, and also use what we call the multidisciplinary approach, where we are saying we bring in a number of experts in the medical field. We're talking about doctors, physiotherapists, psychologists, and those who usually with addiction. That's the first thing that I want to highlight, right? That needs a multi-dimensional approach, because the single approach normally doesn't give us the stuff of one. However, if we are going to go down to the nitty-gritty, we have what we call the cognitive behavioral therapy. This actually seeks to restructure and reshape the negative thoughts that an individual has. I'm sure one of our panelists was saying the experiences that they go through in life, which brought the trauma, and with the trauma, the person develops negative thoughts and negative perspectives about the situation around them, which now forms the basis of their interpretation of the world around them. So we need to restructure the way they perceive society, the way they perceive themselves. Then we also need to use what we call the dialectic behavioral therapy, which is more of a psycho-educational approach. They are now empowering the individual now in order to give them the confidence, because normally what happens now with the trauma, it brings low self-esteem. It brings also the stressors, the depression. We need now to turn around the energy, the negative energy that is being, running or influencing the individual, and turn it into positive side. So we can use the dialectical behavioral therapy. I know, for the interest of time, I cannot get much into this in details, but it also entails in teaching or educating the individual how to regulate their emotions. Especially with the trauma that they experience, the discrimination, the individual needs to have positive coping mechanisms, has to be able to deal with their emotions, have to be able to understand that they are a being who is equally good, with equal potential to do well in society, despite the negative, comments and everything that they meet in their daily life. And then, above all, we need to work on this path as well, because as long as we are only treating symptoms, we are not taking away the real problem, which is the society. The society is the one that really needs the healing first. We need to look at the systems when we are now talking about the ecological approach, where we are saying the individual with a disability, there's stressors around them which leads them to drug and substance abuse. But as long as we don't remove the stressors, as long as we don't restructure the society, now I'm talking from a community psychology perspective, that's why I was saying we need to have a multi-team approach where individuals have to come in and help the individual to be able, and the society as well, to change its way and approach so that we deal with those things that bring about or put a person under pressure that they end up having to adapt the negative coping mechanism which leads to drug and substance abuse. So it's a holistic approach that we need. We don't only need one avenue where we are only dealing with symptoms, but we need to work on the total society, the whole society. I wish with more time then I was going to elaborate how this system works and how do we come to the situation where we are now going to be having a fully rehabilitated individual. Because it's one thing taking a person into a rehab, but when you return them back to the same society which is ill-structured, there is bound for relapse because it's not dealt with the root causes. So our approaches should be holistic and should restructure our society so that we remove all those things that make individuals susceptible to drug and substance abuse. I hope I've managed to answer the question. Thank you.
Indeed, thank you so much. Let me come to you, Charity. We are fast running out of time. There was mention of the importance of family support in dealing with drug abuse. What exactly can be done by families to provide this support? Ndezvipi zvinofanira kuitwa nemafamilies nemhuri necommunity? Tanzwa vamudzingo vachitaura kuti we need to address ma-stressors acho zvinosanganisira iyo society, tichichinjawo maperception edu anoita kuti vamwe vanhu vasvike kusvikira vapinda padepression yambenge yataurwa naRufaro.
All right. Thank you so much, Spati. So, as an individual, I think the first point of support that any individual has is the family. So, the family has a role to make sure that all individuals are protected, and whatever they're going through, the family is there to make sure that they give a helping hand or they give a shoulder to cry on. I liked what Rufa said, that he went to a school where he faced challenges with from other schools, but he knew that when he went back home, there was that support that he needed. So it goes the same way even to other individuals. It might not be persons with disability, but just an individual. The family should be there to support you. The family is the first point of support that any individual has. So the challenge that we are having right now is when, especially we work with young people, when young people are then engaged in drug and substance abuse, we have had issues of family rejecting them, families chasing them out of the home. So at the end, especially the young people, they're ending up in the street, they're ending up at drug bases. But we're saying that you, the family, should be there to provide support. It might be support in getting them the help that they need in terms of rehabilitation, in terms of getting treatment, and that can only come from the family, because you are the people that are staying with an individual, and you know, for like what the doctor said earlier on, that the symptoms are first known by the family, because you are living with an individual under the same roof. So it is very important for families to make sure that they are always there for their children, especially for the youth, because at the end of the day, the family, if the family is not there for the person who is abusing and using drugs, then who is then supposed to be there for them? You know, right now the family fabric is breaking day in and day out. So who would want to take in the child who's into drug and substance abuse if you, the family, is rejecting that individual? So it is very important for families to hold hands together and try to make sure that individuals get the help that they need.
Thank you so much. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. Tingadaita nyatso dzika nenyaya iyi. Vamwe vari kuti zisupere green ari kuti we need to empower the youth, especially by having an industry which is functional SMEs and agricultural activities, so that they are kept busy working and earning a living out of it. Otherwise, if they are just seated Pama Bridge, Nema shops, they'll automatically end up using drugs. Thank you so much, Zisupare Green. Thank you for that contribution. And ndinotenda vamwe vese vari kutumirawo messages avo. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. Rufaro, mashoko ako ekupedzisira.
Okay, I would think that young people with disabilities, I would urge them to, find a gift that they have. Everyone has a gift, a talent, and to make that talent a hobby, and to make that talent your hiding space. Like I always want, whenever I say something, I always want to bring it down to myself, so that it makes more sense. I found a coping mechanism, yeah, music and poetry, when I was growing up. So it became a hiding spot, such that when this depression would visit, I would always hide in this space, of music and poetry. So I would urge people with disabilities to find something practical. Chokuti, probably you are good at I mean kubika kana kusona kana kuita, say, you can just hide yourself in that, while we are continuing with the struggle for acceptance, for inclusion in our society. You know, these are the practical things that face. I still face depression. Sometimes I'm out with my friends, I'm having fun in a bar or something, and then someone just says something funny. Good, yes, I'm so pale or something. Sometimes I get angry, or sometimes I react, I fight with that guy or something. But sometimes these days now, I'm like, you know what? I'll just ignore this guy, because I think God has given me these gifts and I'm happy, or so I just find this other space you can go wander, because I'll be truthful with you. This depression will not leave, you know, but you can find a space you go wander. You can create a kazone kako kekuti kana ndikangosangana nemunhu azongoda kungotaura zvisina basa pamusoro pangu, ndichangozviisa muchikona changu chiya ndobva ndatokanganwa zvoenda.
Okay, mashoko enyu ekupedzisira vamudzingwa muchibatanidza nezvekutaurwa narufaro ekuti kana wasangana nezvakadai, just find a comfortable space yekuti unongoita let go, umbokanganwa zvawasangana nazvo.
Yes, that's why we're saying, just in the dialect, method where we are now teaching an individual the positive coping mechanisms where we teach the mindfulness, staying in the present, being positive. But also want also to say that we need to work as a society to minimize the risk factors that make individuals successful to drug and abuse. Like I think the earlier message that you read where we are saying we need to empower the youth, we need to get the engaged. That is now going to protect the sector. And I like the idea that we need to have a family unit which is the mic system in our ecological approach to be very much supportive of the individual when it comes now to education. We now want to tell the individual into the situation. We need to make sure that everyone within the family unit is supportive to the process that the individual is going through while they are going through their education. And the society as well to give opportunities to give a safe space to individuals with disabilities where they feel supported, not asking anyone, where they can get opportunities to rise and explore their talents. That's what I want to see. Let's promote to protect the faith that that an individual become a wholesome person, a positive person, a person with the right of the faith. Then we can now start talking about minimizing or reducing drug and substance abuse among individuals with patients with disabilities, where we have people who are now self-confident, people with high self-esteem, and that is also sustainable even to individuals with that disability. That's what I can say is my
Thank you so much. With that, we have come to the end of our program tonight, and I want to thank my guests, Charity Chaturuka, for Youths by Youths Programs Coordinator, Rufaro Chinyanga, Albinism Rights Advocate, as well as Fungai Trevor Mudzingwa, who is a community psychologist who was joining us on the line. Thank you so much for making time to talk to us tonight. And appreciation also goes to my producer, Norman Muchemwa. I'm Spati Swempofu. Catch me again, same time next week on your number station, Star FM, sounding good all the time. Tempo